top 20 best evasive skills in Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 as of Legendary Pack 1. Oh well, hello there everyone and welcome to the video. We'll jump into this list in a second, I promise. Very quickly, I've signed with G Fuel for 6 more months. Oh yes, we have. Put a clap emoji in the chat. Thank you ever so much. And to celebrate this, code CAC CAC, my G Fuel discount code, is once again there, lads, bumped up to a massive 30% off. You can use my discount code CAC on G Fuel at checkout to save a gigantic 30% off your total G Fuel order. This is only going to be bumped up again until the 5th of July 2021. Then it goes back down to 10% off. Thank you ever so much. And let's get into this list. Number 20. Final pose. So, do you remember when I said this was supposed to be a list of the 20 best evasive skills in Xenoverse 2? Yeah, that's kind of a lie because this evasive skill sucks. It's bad. It barely protects you. I think there's about 47 or so in the game right now, evasive skills. So at least 20, there's at least 20 better ones than this, right? And I'm not including the list. Like, even something like anything is probably better than this specific evasive skill. So why did I feature this on this list? Good question. Leave a like and I'll tell you. I put this on the list at number 20 because, well, if you defeat someone with final pose, they can't say or do anything. It's worth it just for that. It does, if your opponent is right next to you when you go for this attack or this evasive, it does do just a tiny bit of damage. Like, it's so minuscule, but regardless, it does still do a bit of damage. And for that, it's like, you know, a top 10 disrespectful finish, right? Maybe. Yeah. Moving on. Number 19, Dragon Burn. Now, real quick before we continue with this list, once again, if you guys would like me to revisit this video at some point in the future, maybe for like a comments edition version of like the top 10, 15, 20, or have you best evasives in Xenoverse 2, then do let me know in the comments. And also, please drop your own list of the best evasives in the game and we'll take it from there. Thank you ever so much. But again, number 19, Dragon Burn. It will do the job. It's definitely not a bad evasive. It does also do a tiny bit of damage on your opponent. But when you use it, and keep in mind, it also only takes 2 bars of stamina to use rather than some of them in the game that take 3 and stuff like, well, 3 bars of stamina, again, as of right now. But if I remember, I'm fairly certain you can actually use a vanish if you get hit with the Dragon Burn. So in that sense, it is kind of somewhat situational. But if you're hit with, honestly, an attack like, I don't know, Spirit Bomb, or Super Spirit Bomb rather, you're going to have to go for at least a couple of Dragon Burns to actually go and fully protect yourself. Number 18, Force Shield. Now, right off the bat, this belongs to Vegito, so therefore, it's instantly fantastic. Thank you ever so much. No, but in all seriousness, though, this also only takes 2 bars of stamina to activate, but this is only really going to protect you. Well, it will protect you from literally anything in the game, I think at least, for the most part, but only if you have the appropriate amount of ki to prolong it after you've used 2 bars of stamina to actually activate. But if you do have enough ki to just prolong it, for the most part, I'll probably mention this example a lot in this video, but if someone goes for a final explosion ultimate attack and they have either max stamina or almost max stamina, you probably won't be able to fully activate Force Shield with 10 bars of ki to fully protect yourself, but you can at least minimize the damage. So with this one, again, it's a bit situational, only in the sense of you need a lot of ki to fully take advantage of this specific evasive. Number 17, Bloody Counter. Now, I know that may be a little bit of a controversial pick, especially after we just had Force Shield, but this is the reason why I'm putting Bloody Counter not only on this list, but where I've put it on the list, if that makes sense. So I've put Bloody Counter on the list here because although it does take 3 bars of stamina to activate, much like Force Shield, you can prolong this depending on how much ki you have. but here's the difference. This does for an evasive at least, this does a pretty decent amount of damage, and again, you can just prolong it depending on how much ki you have in reserve, I guess. So, and I think in the past, I've actually defeated quite a few people, not too many, but just a few, you know, using bloody counter. Belongs to Zarbon, and it is a strike-based evasive skill. It'll do the job because you do have like what, super armor when you use it, maybe. In terms of an evasive to get out of danger, it's probably not the best, but in terms of just taking everything into consideration, maybe, you know, it'll do the job, I guess. And again, it'll do quite a bit of damage on your opponent depending on how much ki you have to prolong it. Number 16, Blaster Meteor. Oh yes, so this belongs to legendary Super Saiyan Brody from Dragon Ball Z. Didn't you know? So yeah, this actually, for an evasive, it's kind of more like a bit of a pseudo super attack, but for the most part, at least, it will protect you. It does take 3 bars of ki to use. It is a ki-based evasive skill, and for what just like a normal evasive is, it actually does do a decent amount of damage. And what I've noticed online, and this is one of the main reasons I've put this on this list, you can actually vanish if you're hit with this, and that's what people tend to do. So you're going to probably make someone, not all the time, definitely not, but quite a few situations, you're going to make your opponent vanish just from being hit with this to try and get out of the way of it, because, again, for an evasive skill, it does a decent amount of damage. Now, with that said, if you do vanish behind this when it's being used on you, you can actually perfect block it, as I have done in the past in videos on the channel. Hey, maybe subscribe if you haven't done so already, and maybe take a look at the channel if you haven't done so already, and stuff like that. Number 15, Angry Shout. This used to be my go-to evasive skill in the original Xenoverse game, Dragon Ball Xenoverse, Dragon Ball Xenoverse 1, whatever you want to call it. I do believe it got a little bit nerfed from Xenoverse 1 to Xenoverse 2, but it's still a decent evasive. It'll, you know, it will protect you, because when you use it, you will actually have like a, well, it's not a barrier, but you will stagger your opponent. Keep in mind, it can be blocked, and that it can actually be perfect blocked. But at the same time, when you use this, it is a strike-based evasive, and it does actually take 3 bars of stamina to use. But again, at the same time, this will actually recover a bit of your ki, making it a fairly unique evasive skill for what it actually is. And it does do a little bit of damage on your opponent. Honestly, this is, I would consider this, at least for the most part, just an like a well-rounded evasive. It'll do the job, and you will do a bit of damage on your opponent, as well as recovering a bit of ki at the same time. Number 14, Chaos's War. I thought it was just Chaos War, whatever. This is the evasive from Supreme Kai of Time, and I'll be completely honest, this may actually be higher on the list if it wasn't for the fact that this is incredibly awkward to unlock. Let me just tell you how you actually get this. Firstly, you actually need to wait for the Supreme Kai of Time event in Canton City to actually start. When does it come about? We have no idea. It's every whenever, right? Check the official Xenoverse 2 website for more details. Yeah, so you have to wait for that. Then once it's actually out, well, firstly, you also need to clear the story mode to do that. Then once it's actually out, you need to clear it once, then twice. So clear it twice in total. Then the third time, you'll be able to go and pick the individual missions. Now, I forget which mission this drops from, but like all of the Supreme Kai of Time skills, at least as of right now, they all have an awful drop rate, and I can't stress that enough. Their drop rate is dreadful. It is awful. Again, it's just so bad. Now, in terms of an actual evasive, again, it does the job, and you can actually do a decent amount of damage on this, maybe even more so if you are a ki-based character with a ki damaging limit burst and or super. So you can make this even bigger, and I think faster as well, by prolonging it. And if it hits your opponent, it'll knock them, well, I think you knock them back anyway, and then you go and like shoot the magical wall of light at them. Again, for an evasive, it'll do the job. Just be careful against skills such as, you know, super ki explosion, angry explosion, and of course final explosion. Number 13, Absolute Zero, the counterpart, I guess, to Dragon Burn. This is fantastic. So in the original Xenoverse game, this was a DLC skill, given that, you know, Ice Shenron and Nova Shenron were DLC characters. I forget if Omega Shenron was, but that's neither here or there for this specific video. Who Absolute Zero in the original Xenoverse game, so even technically now as well, it's the most overpowered evasive in, you know, the entirety of Xenoverse 1. And when Xenoverse 2 first came out, it was also incredibly overpowered to the point where it had to be nerfed just a little bit. Once you're hit with Absolute Zero, I'm fairly certain that you can't actually vanish out of it. You'll either have to just, you know, endure it. But I think you can use an evasive out of it. I'm fairly certain that you can. Now, keep in mind, unlike Dragon Burn, this, well, Absolute Zero, does actually take 3 bars of stamina to use rather than 2. But I think that additional bar of stamina is worth it because, again, it's going to make your opponent either endure it or they'll absolutely have to, no pun intended, they'll have to use an evasive out of it. And depending on what evasive they have, you could basically bait them into using 2 or 3 bars of precious stamina just because you hit them with your evasive. I mean, I don't know. I do think it's a fantastic evasive, and I really wouldn't be surprised if it gets nerfed even more at some point in the future, whether it be a Xenoverse 2 update or even Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3. Number 12, Special Beam Blast. Now, at least in my opinion, this is pretty much useless against any super attack and any ultimate attack, unless your opponent has very, 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 very low stamina to the point where this hitting them will actually break their stamina. Now, regardless of that, this does take 3 bars of ki to use, and it is a ki-based evasive skill, but it does a good amount of damage. I mean, it's literally a supercharged, incredibly fast version of the Special Beam Cannon, unsurprisingly enough. And when you use it, you do move back a bit as well, or you just do like a backflip, or is it just like a back step? It doesn't matter. But against like a normal, I guess like normal, you know, melee basic close-up stuff, it will, you know, it's pretty fantastic. It really is. Again, 3 bars of stamina to use, strike-based evasive, and again, for what it is, it does a lot of damage. And you can just make it even stronger if you have like a limit burst active and or a damage increase super soul. Good stuff right there in my opinion. Number 11, Break Strike. Now this is, in my opinion, what an evasive should be. Now there are many more evasives in Xenoverse 2 as of right now, again as of Legendary Pack 1, that are better than this, but this is an evasive that for the most part you're just not going to go wrong with this, unless again you're hit with something like Final Explosion or what have you. Now if you use this and you know what you're doing, like let's just say for example your opponent, you know, hits you with a super Kamehameha ultimate attack, use this, and if you know what you're doing, you can actually perfect block the next, I guess, like wave or, you know, beat, I guess maybe, of the Super Kamehameha Ultima. Then you can move out the way or continue to perfect block it. But if you're hit with it first, you know, you'll need to do something to actually protect yourself. For example, Break Strike. And again, it does a tiny bit of damage if you actually hit your opponent with it. And evasive, for the most part, they don't do damage. Some of them do, as we've already got, you know, gone over on this list and previously as well, with things such as Special Beam Blast and Bloody Counter. But this will do the job. There is one better one that is also a, you know, that also works like this, as we'll get into later on. For example, if your opponent uses a limit, if you break your opponent's guard and you then make them limit burst and you're right next to them, you can go for Break Strike, and it, well, unless they have a super armor limit burst, they pretty much just waste the limit burst because they can't recover, and it, for the most part, might actually be game there, if that makes sense. I know that was a bit of a ramble, but yeah, this will do the job. There is a better one coming up in a little bit on this list, but again, if you've got Break Strike, great evasive, it will just do what it's supposed to do. You know, it will protect you or get you out of trouble, again, for the most part. Number 10, Hyper Movement. Hands up if you remember when this used to be the best evasive in the game, as in he used to take 3 bars of stamina, he now takes 2. But if your opponent was going for any ultimate attack, you could use hyper movement and it would break their guard. This was insane. Like, everyone, myself included, used to use this because it was a free stamina break when your opponent went for an ultimate attack or anything that, like, you know, block it. Well, I don't know if it worked when they blocked or something, but yeah, this used to be broken as anything. Now, it will also do the job now for most attacks. For example, well, pretty much any beam attack or strike ultimates, such as Justice combination, it will get you out of trouble because it will teleport behind your opponent, and you can then go for, you know, a fully charged heavy to then break their guard or set up your own ultimate. Final explosion, great ultimate, by the way. Can you tell I like it from what I've said so far in this video? But yeah, this used to be insanely overpowered, and well, you can still do it now, where you can actually use it to, I guess, like, combo into stuff, and it freezes your animations, as you can see on the screen right now. Well, when I say freeze animations, it, like, well, you can see on the screen, it's hard to explain, but yeah, good evasive, it'll do the job. But it's a bit of a shadow of its former self. Number 9, the spread shot retreat. Oh, we are getting to some really good stuff right now. Key-based evasive, 3 bars of stamina even to use. I'll get that right one day, I promise. Strike-based evasive, 3 bars of stamina to use. It will, look, I'm trying to think, like, even against things like Final Explosion, I'm fairly certain this will get you out of harm's way easily. Like, easily. And at the same time as well, it will do a lot of damage for what an evasive is, from shooting various key blasts, as the description says right here. Attack with scattering key blasts while evading with back jumps. I've got no idea why back jumps is capitalized, and that's weird. Okay. So it's basically like, well, what's the other evasive? I'm just looking right now. The other evasive that, like, what is it? Super back jump. This is basically like super back jump to the extreme and shooting key blasts. It'll do the job. Fantastic stuff right there. Number 8, the time skip, or rather the time skip tremor pulse. 2 bars of stamina to use. It's a strike skill from hit. I mean, like, it's in the name. You literally time skip, right? This is basically kind of, for the most part, again, for the most part, it's very similar to hyper movement, again, as we've already gone over on this list, you know, a few entries ago. But I've put this here because, well, it's just probably the most, well, one of the most disrespectful and just, like, an insanely cool looking evasive skill to actually use, and I think it does significantly more damage if actually, you know, you actually land it than the hyper movement evasive. I'll be completely honest, apart from that, I don't really have that much else to say. Yeah. Oh, and as far as I'm aware, you can't block this either. Number 7, super key explosion. Oh yes, this is my go-to evasive, despite the fact that I put this, you know, on number 7. So it'll do a good amount of damage for, again, I feel like I've said this many times before in this video, for an evasive skill rather, it does a decent amount of damage, and I've defeated many people, more specifically trash talkers, with the super key explosion evasive. No, it's not, it's a super explosive wave, same thing, whatever. 2 bars of stamina to use, and it is a key blast evasive. Now, the reason why I put this here is because, again, what I've just mentioned, 2 bars of, you know, key to use, decent amount of damage. Oh, and it's fast to activate. But like what I said with Break Strike, I think this is a better version of Break Strike because it takes less, you know, stamina to use. And I think it actually does more damage as well, surprisingly enough. Side note, you shouldn't, for the most part at least, you shouldn't really be using an evasive. For damage, you should use it as an evasive skill, right? To, like, get out of danger and stuff like that. Now, like what I said with Break Strike earlier on in this video, if you break your opponent's guard, like with a stamina break or a fully charged heavy or something like that, and limit bursts are active and they go for a limit burst with their stamina broken, if you're right next to them and you go full super explosive wave evasive, and if they don't have super guard, what I'm talking about, and if they don't have super armor, rather, not super guard, what's that? If they don't have super armor, this will launch them up and they won't be able to recover because, well, their stamina is still recharging. Oh, and you've just made them use their limit burst, and I've won many games by doing that, breaking their guard, them limit bursting, then me being right next to them. You have to do like a basic combo, what have you, then go for super explosive wave, and you just can't do anything because once you're hit with the super explosive wave and you've got no stamina, so you can't recover, you're launched up, and you just have to hope nothing happens. Great evasive. Number 6, Spirit Explosion. I don't really have too much to say on Spirit Explosion, other than it's just fantastic, and that it's pretty much a strike version of the Super Explosive Wave Evasive. They both take 2 bars of stamina to use. I almost said key again. They both take, 2 bars of stamina to use, but with this, it launches your opponent, I think, directly backwards rather than up, for example, like what Super Explosive Wave does and what Break Strike does. Again, apart from that, not much to say here. It's a pretty standard evasive. It'll do the job. Good stuff right there. Number 5, Fake Blast. This used to take, I think it used to take 3 bars of stamina, right? But now it only takes 2. This doesn't do any damage, keep in mind, but this is basically a solar flare in an evasive. Now, I think it can vanish when it's being activated, despite the fact that it's an incredibly fast skill to activate. But once you land it, you will temporarily blind your opponent, like what attacks such as Solar Flare do. And if they don't know what they're, well, if your opponent doesn't know what they're doing, you can easily go for a heavy stamina break, despite them even maybe having max stamina and, having, enough stamina and time to, use an evasive themselves out of it and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know why they made this even more powerful. Well, I mean, again, it is classed as an evasive skill, but at the same time, it doesn't really protect you. Now, you do have like invincibility, well, not invincibility, you do have like super armor when you're using it, but given how fast it is, you're gonna have to keep using this over and over and over again to fully protect yourself from certain skills. Number 4, Mac Dash, or is it Mock Dash? Doesn't matter, you know exactly the one I am talking about there, lads. 2 bars of stamina, and when you use it, you'll just like launch out of the way of your opponent at rapid speeds. It's fantastic. And I believe this also temporarily gives you a speed increase. Honestly, apart from that, I don't have too much more to say about this specific evasive. It's classed as a power-up, and as of right now in Xenoverse 2, there's only 2, at least, that you can use on your character, I think. There's only 2 power-up evasives. You've got Final Pose, which is fantastic. No, it's not. And you've got this one right here, Mac Dash, Mock Dash, whatever, leave a like. Number 3, Armored Boost. Now, as far as I'm aware, this is the only evasive skill in Xenoverse 2 that will get you out of like the radius of any attack if you're locked onto your opponent, that is. It does take 3 bars of stamina to use. Honestly, if this only took 2 bars of stamina, this would be number 1. So with that said, you can probably guess what number 1 is going to be. But if you don't know, we'll get into it momentarily. Stay tuned. Oh yes. Number 2, Vanisher Guard. Oh yes. The evasive that belongs to Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta that we can also use, which is rather nice. Thank you, Gogeta Super Saiyan 4. Oh, yeah, 3 bars of stamina to use. Now, despite the fact that I've just said Armor Boost will protect you from any skill, Vanisher Guard also does, I think, but again, I think the only example here would be if you're hit with a max stamina Final Explosion. You may have to go for this twice. You can prolong this, I believe, just by holding down X and just, the same input and what have you. But I think against a max key, Final Explosion, or max stamina Final Explosion, I said it again, against a max stamina Final Explosion, and if they decide to fully prolong it, I don't think Vanisher Guard will fully protect you, but it's going to like significantly reduce the damage that you would receive from Final Explosion anyway. But again, I'm fairly certain against max stamina Final Explosion specifically, it doesn't fully protect you. And the reason why I've been using Final Explosion as an example a lot in this video so far is because, well, as of right now, it is the strongest key base. Well, I think it's the strongest attack in the game, to be honest. Like, full stop. So, that said, you'd probably want to know how to fully protect yourself from the strongest skill in the game. Again, Armor Boost will do that, but given it doesn't do any damage, and given, well, not even that, but given that it takes 3 bars of stamina to use rather than 2, which some of them in the game do. That rhymed, Scooby-Doo. Oh. I forgot what I was saying. Yeah, Vanisher Guard, it's awesome. It looks cool when you use it, and that's pretty much the reason why I've put it where I've put it on this list. And number 1, Instant Rise. I'm fairly certain there's going to be a lot of people who will disagree with me here, but again, this is a subjective list, and in my opinion, well, it's the same thing. Yeah, Instant Rise, 2 bars of stamina to use, and you can actually slightly control the direction that you rise up in, you know, by, I think it's like moving the left analog stick in the appropriate direction. And I'm fairly certain this will protect you from, or get you out of the way of a final explosion. And if it does, then it'll protect you from literally any skill in the game as of right now. Will that change when Full June is added in, presumably Legendary? Well, it is Legendary Pack 2, I think, coming out in fall, currently scheduled to come out rather in fall of 2021. We have to wait and see. Maybe again I'll revisit this list in the future, the comments edition, and you know, just stuff like that. But yeah, Instant Rise, I mean, it'll do the job more, you know. Yeah, Instant Rise, guys, good evasive. And that is the list. Do you agree or disagree? Probably disagree, let's be fair. Do let me know about it though in the comments. And that said, I'll see you next time.